Thank you for clicking on this video. Welcome to another Wednesday, meaning more Rank the Movies. That's right, this week we're talking about something really cool, really fun. We just got done talking about sequels and trilogies, and this week we're talking about wrestling movies. Not just The Wrestler, although The Wrestler, it's a really great movie. If you've never sat down and watched The Wrestler, definitely check it out. It is one worth looking at for no greater reason than it's just a really good movie. Mickey Rourke plays a wrestler who's an older, kind of like 70s, 80s wrestler who's, out of his prime but is still trying to make it in the business. He never made it super famous, and it's just his life struggle. It is a good movie, but that's not the movie I want to talk about. Though it features a lot of actual wrestlers, I want to look at some of my favorite wrestling movies featuring pro wrestlers, and there are a ton of them. So I've decided to only cherry pick from talent, meaning no wrestler will appear on this list more than once. That's almost fully true. I'm pretty sure one wrestler does get in there again because he was in a movie with a bunch of other wrestlers. He was in a couple of movies with a bunch of other wrestlers. So let's get this list started. I can't, as much as The Wrestler is a great movie, I can't forget on this list the one, the only, Ready to Rumble. Ready to Rumble features basically the entire 2000 era WCW roster. That means Sting, Goldberg, Booker T, Disco Inferno, Kurt Hennig, Bam Bam Bigelow, Chris Canyon, the list goes on and on and on. Basically, you have two wrestling fanboys, played by David Arquette and Scott Caan. They love WCW wrestling, it's the greatest thing on earth, and they think it's real, though the movie is really sketchy on if wrestling is real or if wrestling is fake through the entire bit. It's one of those movies that it's so bad it's actually considered good nowadays. It's fun to watch, it's worth the laugh just to, go ha 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 at Scott Caan and David Arquette acting like idiots, because that's what they do, they act like idiots for the entire runtime of this movie. The wrestlers involved, they seem like they're having fun, and I guess that's the thing that can go for it. Basically, these two idiots are trying to get their favorite wrestler, Jimmy King, played by Oliver Platt, because why not put a wrestler in a wrestler's role, put an actor there, played by Oliver Platt, who is fired from WCW in disgrace, and they're trying to get him back on top. The funniest part of this entire movie isn't in the movie itself, it's something the movie led to, and that is the WCW World Championship reign of David Arquette. That's right, David Arquette is a World Heavyweight Champion in wrestling. 2000s were a weird time. Alright, next up, let's take a look at Rocky III. Rocky III features both Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. A lot of people go, well, Mr. T is not a wrestler. He wrestled at the first two WrestleManias. Bam, wrestler. This is my Hulk Hogan choice. Hulk Hogan's got a lot of great movies, and there is one that's better, but we'll get to that later. Not today, not this week, in a later video. We'll get to that movie next week. But this week, we're looking at Rocky III. Hulk Hogan plays Thunderlips. He plays a pro wrestler who gets into a charity event against Rocky, where it's the pro wrestler versus the boxer, to see which one's going to do better in a match. It's a ridiculous scene, and again it plays on the idea of wrestling being real and not wrestling being work. Mr. T is also in it. He plays Clubber Lang. He is the primary villain, trying to beat Rocky for the world title. In fact, he does beat Rocky and then gets beaten in the end. Spoilers. Alright, next up, let's take a look at Santa's Sleigh. Not the first time we'll be looking at this movie in the near future. This one features Bill Goldberg and one Tiny Lister Jr. Not a lot of people know who Tiny Lister Jr. is in the wrestling world. We'll get to that. This one, Bill Goldberg plays Santa Claus. That's right, he plays Santa Claus. Basically, Santa Claus is actually Satan, who had to become Santa Claus after losing a curling match to an angel. Now his time as Santa has ended, and Satan Claus is going on a rampage through the town of hell. You can't make this stuff up. This is a great movie. It's a Christmas classic. It's a hilarious film. If you've never watched Santa's Sleigh, definitely check it out. It's worth the time. It is a funny, funny Christmas film. Moving on, we've got Ed Wood, which features George the Animal Steele as Tor Johnson. Normally I don't put who they played in the movie on these screens, but Tor Johnson is a wrestler on his own. And George the Animal Steele is a pro wrestler playing a pro wrestler, who is an actor. Ed Wood looks at the story of Edward D. Wood Jr. Ed Wood was a B-movie producer, director, and writer during the old black and white era. One of his biggest hits is, of course, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Tor Johnson in this movie is one of his actors. He finds him one day and uses him as an actor in a lot of his movies, including Plan 9 from Outer Space, which could have been on this list for Tor Johnson, but it's not. Because I just don't know who Tor Johnson is as a wrestler. I just know he was a wrestler. So George Steele, he does a great job in this movie. Ed Wood, it's a hilarious movie. It's a great little biopic, and it kind of tells a weird part of history and the story. Next up, we're talking about The Longest Yard. This one boasts Stone Cold Steve Austin, Big Sexy Kevin Nash, Goldberg again, and the Great Khali. So this one actually has 4 pro wrestlers in one film. This is an Adam Sandler piece. He plays a star quarterback, down on his luck, gets sent to prison, and is talked into coaching the prison football league to have a game against the guards to get the guards ready for their football season. Steve Austin and Kevin Nash play guards. Goldberg and the Great Khali play cons. It's a fun movie. I've always enjoyed The Longest Yard. This version, I've never watched the original, but seriously, you should definitely check out this version of The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler. It is a good time. It is a lot of fun. Next up, we're talking Doom, which of course features Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I've talked about Doom before in one of my other videos. I like this movie. I don't care what people say, especially the scene where they're actually in first person. It's a great scene. It's a great piece of cinema. And you gotta love The Rock. He's not a great actor at this point. He's not the superstar he's gonna be down the line. But he does such a good job with what he's given. It's a lot of fun. And if you've never gotten to see The Rock in Doom, check it out. 100% check it out. Next up, we're talking The Predator with Jesse the Body Ventura. The Predator is a very well-known piece of film. Basically, a group of commandos go into the woods. They're hunting some terrorists, some drug dealers, and they get stalked by a predator, an alien. Jesse Ventura plays one of the commandos, who is eventually hacked by the predator in a very cool fashion. It's a great movie. It's a Schwarzenegger film, so you can't go wrong there. Check out The Predator, not just for Jesse Ventura, but for the whole movie. It is worth checking it out. Next up, we've got SpiderMan, the original, because of Randy Macho Man Savage's Bonesaw. Basically, it's telling the story of Spider-Man. A lot of people know this one. Bit by a radioactive spider, spider powers, woohoo! Randy Savage in this movie plays Bonesaw. Peter Parker goes to try to make money by doing a wrestling show, and Bonesaw's who he fights. Randy Savage is tremendous in this movie. If you're not a huge Marvel fan, just look up the scene for Randy Savage. It is a great time. There's a reason a cameo makes this list, whereas the rest of them are basically full-on characters in the movie, because Randy Savage does such a great job. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy with Dave Bautista. We've talked about this Marvel movie before. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It is freaking hilarious. You can't go wrong with a good Guardians of the Galaxy movie. They're trying to stop Ronan from gaining one of the Infinity Stones, the Stone of Strength. Bautista plays Drax. Drax is one of the Guardians. He is very literal in what he says and does. And it's a great time. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. If for some reason you've never checked it out, if you're not a huge superhero fan, this is one worth watching. Just check it out. It's worth it. Last, but definitely not least, we've got the classic film, The Princess Bride. which of course features Andre the Giant. It's a great movie. It's a classic love tale. It's in my top 100. It's a grandfather telling a story to his child about, you know, love and romance and adventure. It is a great time. And Andre the Giant plays a brute. And he is so well likable. He is so enjoyable. He is such a great actor in this film. If for some reason you've never seen The Princess Bride, check it out. It's worth it for everyone, including Andre. Alright, well, that was my list for this week. Next week, I'm going to continue this theme just a little bit because we're going to look at one wrestler in particular. I only mentioned him once. My phone is ringing and I gotta go. Hit subscribe, like the video for more information, leave a comment if you want, and I'll talk to you later.